On the evening of November 5th, 1940, a single unarmed merchant cruiser with outdated guns stood between a German pocket battleship and an entire convoy of ships. What happened next is one of the most extraordinary acts of sacrifice in naval history, and most people have never heard of it. Stay with us. It's the evening of November 5th, 1940, and a group of British ships are racing across the Atlantic to resupply Britain. In the middle of the convoy is a single-armed merchant cruiser, the HMS Jervis Bay. A call comes over the bridge. Unidentified ship spotted. Hard to port. Course to intercept this ship. Captain Edward Fegen immediately orders the Jervis Bay to turn towards the ship and out of the center of the convoy. He orders a challenge signal to be flashed across the waves. Send the code. Seconds pass as they wait for the ship to respond. But the mystery vessel sends back the exact same challenge message. The British know that no friendly ship would answer in that way. It must be the Germans. Sound action stations. Alarms ring out across the Jervis Bay as men rush to their posts, manning guns and preparing the ship for battle. Back on the bridge, Fegen's blood runs cold as he realizes what he is looking at. It's a pocket battleship. It's HMS Admiral Scheer, one of Germany's most formidable warships. She's bristling with guns and bears enough firepower to devastate the convoy. HMS Jervis Bay is no match for a pocket battleship. A direct engagement will only end one way. But if he can just keep the Scheer from getting close to the convoy, then maybe he can buy time for them to escape. Get the convoy away. Send up the flares and lay down the smoke. Aye, sir. The evening gloom is illuminated by a burning red glow as Jervis Bay launches her signal flares high into the sky. The merchant ships break out of their columns and begin turning to starboard. Keep clear. It is going to hit. The captain strains the engines and rudders to the limits as they work hard to avoid collision with one another. Aboard Jervis Bay, sailors throw smoke floats into the water and huge clouds of gray smoke billow into the air. In seconds, the convoy disappears behind the haze. Fegen knows what he has to do. Turn to starboard, make full speed, and close the distance. HMS Jervis Bay charges directly toward the enemy, drawing all attention to herself. 10 nautical miles away on the Scheer, Captain Zur C. Theodore Crank and his ship power forward to close the distance with the seemingly defenseless convoy when a message comes in. Captain, one of the merchant ships is moving to attack. It looks like a steamliner. Do they even have guns? If they do, they are not as big as ours, sir. Turn to port. Crank orders a turn to port, bringing the ship's broadside to bear. On HMS Jervis Bay, Captain Fegen can see his enemy lining up the first salvo. Confident the merchant ships are now hidden from German guns, Fegen gives the order. Open fire. At the forward gun, able seaman Sam Patience rams a shell into the breach. But the enemy is still not in range of the Jervis Bay's puny 6-inch guns. Sam watches on the horizon, and the thunder of Admiral Scheer's 11-inch guns tears across the sky. It takes more than 20 seconds for the shells to come whistling down to sea, splashing home in front of their bow and kicking up huge columns of water. The German gunners are finding their target, and the Scheer immediately fires off a second salvo with an enormous roar. Huge columns of spray are kicked up as rounds fall close behind. They have got us bracketed. Fire! The massive guns fire their third salvo, and this time it is a direct hit. The bridge is torn apart by a mighty explosion. Fegen reaches down to pick himself off the floor, but the pain in his shoulder is excruciating. It is at this point he realizes his arm is missing. But despite losing a limb, he is determined to fight on, and he descends painfully down to the deck, clinging to another sailor for support. Shells continue to land every few seconds, and soon the entire superstructure begins to crumble under the repeated explosions. An incoming round even blasts away the white ensign flying from the mainmast. Hold your positions. The crew look up as shards of wood and glowing embers cascade down to the deck, and the tattered white flag flutters down. But the British crew stay calm. Fire emergency. They have drilled for this situation, and now the training takes over. Firefighting teams battle the raging blaze with hoses. Keep the guns firing. The surviving gunners stay at their posts. A sailor dashes past and climbs up the shattered mast with the help of a crewmate and nails up a fresh white ensign. There is a rousing cheer from the surviving British crewmen. They are firing again. Fegen fights through the searing pain as he considers his next move. Hold your positions. They are lining up another salvo. He sees that the Scheer has begun firing its secondary 6-inch guns at the fleeing merchant ships. Jervis Bay's continued resistance is the only thing stopping the German ship from unleashing its main guns on the convoy. Fegen pulls himself to his feet. With the bridge destroyed, he has got to get to the rear control compartment. From there, he can steer the ship and issue orders. His body is close to failing, but he moves as fast as he can, supported by a crewmate. Meanwhile, Sam and his team are firing off their weapon as rapidly as they can. He rams another round home and waits for the blast. The shell arcs away, and Sam watches as it plunges harmlessly into the water. The Scheer remains untouched. We might as well be throwing spuds. They may not be inflicting any damage, but they know that every round keeps Scheer from closing in, buying precious time for the convoy to escape. Sam readies himself to send another round downrange. But suddenly he's blown off his feet by an enormous shuddering blast. He feels a sharp stabbing pain and slams down onto the deck. Then his world goes black. On the Scheer, Captain Crank watches the fires burn across Jervis Bay. It is still blocking his most direct route to the merchant ships, and despite the damage, a single 6-inch gun keeps firing in his direction. The British shells do no harm, but the risk of a lucky hit plays on his mind, so he can't just sail past. Neither does he have the time to bypass her. If this ship will not surrender, she must be annihilated. Sam comes round slowly, waking up to the chaos of battle. Through fogged eyes, he watches as his captain slowly makes his way along the deck to the rear control compartment. If Fegen gets there, he will be able to steer the ship and issue orders. Maybe he can get them out of this. Sam watches and shouts encouragement. "Come on, sir." Fegen finally approaches his destination as a German shell flies in. The room is blasted apart. Sam braces himself against the force of the blast and looks on in horror as Fegen disappears into a whirl of flames and shrapnel. Sam clings to the rail as the smoke clears and shapes start to emerge from the gloom. Peering through the swirling battle, he finally sees the body of his captain lying motionless. The next salvo comes in seconds, striking home and tearing into the ship. Flames burst up from below decks, inflicting the final crippling blow. Jervis Bay shudders, lurches, and then begins to list as water rushes into the hull. Abandoned ship. All around, sailors put on their life belts and begin evacuating. Dazed and injured, Sam suddenly finds himself alone. All the lifeboats have been deployed. His only option is to jump. He stares down into the icy water. Like many others on board, he can't swim. "I have got to get out of here." But then he spots one last life buoy sitting in its case. Bracing through the pain, he limps across the deck and hurls himself at the buoy. He pulls at the case, straining every muscle, but the buoy just won't budge. Come on. Sam can feel the ship shifting beneath him. Every second brings him closer to an icy grave. Come on. He musters all his strength and pulls again. And this time the buoy comes free. Sam jumps. He crashes down into the water, breaking through the surface and feeling the air knocked out from his lungs. He fights with all his strength, kicking and pulling himself until he reaches the surface, gasping and coughing. He takes a quick look at the sinking Jervis Bay, and he is horrified to see there are still men on board who can't swim and won't risk jumping in. He has no idea where to go. Perhaps he can find one of the lifeboats. Already shivering, he begins paddling away into the night. On the bridge of the Scheer, Captain Crank can't help but admire the sacrifice of the enemy crew. God knows, those men have put themselves in their country's debt. But now he can start the pursuit. Peering into the dark, he spots SS Ranjitiki, a large transport ship, steaming away in the distance. He sets course and begins the hunt. Hard to starboard. Fire at the biggest catch. Ranjitiki twists and turns, changing course to try and avoid the German warship. But the Scheer launches a salvo and scores a direct hit on the ship's stern. Ranjitiki is badly hit and trailing columns of black smoke. Crank is confident that he's bagged his second kill of the evening, but then watches in frustration as the massive ship disappears into a smoke screen. Night falls, and a few miles away Sam struggles in the freezing water. His injuries are agonizing, and the cold stabs him like 1,000 tiny needles. He doesn't know how much longer he can keep this up. But then, he spots a small shape in the dark and hears familiar voices drifting across the waves. There are men in a lifeboat looking for survivors. He paddles himself closer, fighting through the waves. Using the last of his energy, he drags himself up into the boat. Sam collapses exhausted among the feet of his fellow sailors, and the men huddle together for a long, cold night. They watch as HMS Jervis Bay finally slips beneath the waves. The white ensign that they had proudly erected is the last thing to disappear. All that's left behind is a field of debris and the men who didn't make it out alive. In the distance, they can see the flashes and hear the echoing booms as HMS Admiral Scheer chases down another merchant ship. Flashes of light blaze on the horizon as the German pocket battleship fires off another salvo. Explosions tear through the sky as a merchantman is hit and starts going down. But up on the bridge of the Scheer, Captain Crank grows impatient. He spent so long fighting HMS Jervis Bay that now he is hunting in the pitch black. Finding the merchant ships is taking far too long, and he is running low on ammunition. Break off the attack. We are chasing ghosts out here. HMS Admiral Scheer slips away into the vastness of the ocean. Never thought it would be so cold. Silence descends upon the North Atlantic. The men in the lifeboat know that the chance of rescue is low. The merchant ships have strict orders to continue to Britain. But hours later, the survivors spot lights approaching. It looks like rescue has arrived. Help us! The men shout and wave their arms. We are here. As the big boat comes alongside, they hear strains of a foreign language. Boat in sight. They glance around nervously. Are they about to become prisoners? But the ship is not German. It's the Swedish freighter Sturholm. Captain, survivors. The ship's crew haul the freezing men up onto the deck. Altogether, Sturholm and her men save 68 of Jervis Bay's 256-man crew and deliver them safely to Canada. The British ship's heroic sacrifice allowed almost for all of the merchant ships to escape from the HMS Admiral Scheer. For his bravery, Captain Fegen was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross. The Germans didn't all have it their own way. Click here to see how the British sank the Scharnhorst. Ending/subscribe. Captain Fegen never made it home. Neither did 188 of his crew. But because of their courage, nearly an entire convoy survived that night. If stories like this, of ordinary men doing extraordinary things, are the kind of history that moves you, hit subscribe and like so we can keep telling them. These stories deserve to be remembered,